Today on the Clock Tips podcast.
Which is very funny now thinking about it. But back then, I genuinely thought I was Superwoman and I could do it all, and I needed to use all 24 hours of the day.
Welcome to the Clock Tips podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Melissa Richardson. Thanks for joining us. Falling asleep and staying asleep is pretty difficult for a lot of people. But did you know that daytime naps, drinking caffeine later in the day, having a warm room temperature at night, experiencing pain, and drinking too much after 5 p.m. are some common reasons that people wake up at night? Today, I'm here with our guest, Estelle. She does background investigations for people who will work for the government someday. Welcome to the Clock Tips podcast, Estelle.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa, for having me.
So, do you ever have trouble staying asleep or falling asleep? Or are you guilty of any of those things we just mentioned?
I am totally guilty for most, if not all, things that you have mentioned, especially depending on the day that I've had at work. So, a little background about myself. I thought I was someone that was, in my younger days, thought I was someone that was really great at managing time and scheduling either tasks that needed to be completed or things that I need to do like efficiently, just to find out later on in my late 20s that that was not the case at all. And at which point I made it a thing or something that I needed to do to figure out on how I can improve my time to ensure that I get quality sleep, to ensure that when I wake up in the morning that I am bright-eyed and bushy-tailed for my tests I need to complete throughout the day. So we're talking about someone that would in the past go from sleeping extremely late, and by late anywhere from midnight to 2 in the morning, to now having trained myself to when a certain time will come in to do certain routines to ensure that I'm in bed no later than between 10 and 11. To most people, they may think, how's that an improvement? But for me, that was a huge milestone because of my past habits of my sleeping patterns and lack of keeping track of time. I would find myself up stressing and worrying about my lack of sleep, which is funny, and not sleeping until the sun comes up and repeating that pattern again. To now where I can successfully say, yes, by 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, I am asleep because there are certain steps that I've created to ensure that I can fall asleep and stay asleep.
Okay. So tell me more about maybe any decisions that you made back then when it came to staying up late, and why did you decide to make that transition now?
So decisions regarding...
Like, why did you decide to stay up? Or was it a decision, or did it just happen?
Oh, so back then, which is very funny now thinking about it, but back then I genuinely thought I was Superwoman and I could do it all, and I needed to use all 24 hours of the day, or as much of the 24-hour day period as I could. And naturally, my body is like more of a night owl person where I feel more energized to do more of my work, whatever, or task during the nighttime, versus the day, I'm more lethargic, sleepy, grumpy, not realizing the reason why I felt that way in the morning was because of my habits I did at nighttime. But for the longest time, I just refused to change that until I started getting, and this is so vain saying this, but it wasn't until like I started seeing more acne like populating into my face, or my eating habits was becoming super poor, like extremely poor. And I noticed I was craving a lot of sugar, like a lot of sugar. And I'm naturally am not a sweets person. I prefer savory over sweets any day. But it was to the point where like my body needed some form of sugar or caffeine to operate during the daytime. But then I was finding myself even staying up longer during the nighttime period. And when I realized that my health was being compromised dramatically because of those habits, I needed to change that. And funny enough, the thing that I will say, like the experience or the moment that made me realize, like, okay, let me change that was actually a conversation I had with you, Melissa, and regarding
Really?
the circadian rhythm. And when we had that conversation and you brought that phrase, circadian rhythm, into my psyche, my mind was literally blown because I was like, what is that? Why is that a thing? And how does that benefit anyone? And at that point,
Hmm.
the more we were talking, the more I was like, yeah, I need to change my habits like dramatically just to follow that. I'm not sure if
Yeah,
you really remember, like, I
I
probably think
do.
it was like 2 years ago we had this conversation.
Yeah, I'm honored and happy that that conversation did make an impact.
It made a huge impact. Like so much so that, no lie, I think by the time we were done having that conversation, maybe 2 weeks later, I bought blackout lights for my room. I also bought an eye mask for me to sleep in. I
Okay.
even changed the quality of sheets
Wow.
on my bed just to ensure that I'm not overheating or
Yeah.
like not having an excuse not to go to bed because instead of saying like I don't like the way my sheets feel, I don't like the way my bed feel, I'm always hot or it's not comfortable, like I ensured that I created my environment to encourage me to like at least lay in the bed and stay there. Like if the room is boring, if the room is cold enough for me to like force my body to create heat, I will fall asleep.
Mm.
I will fall asleep. And I also even made sure to like block out any unnecessary lights, blue lights,
Mm-hmm.
which I realized that my radio, because I've always had it plugged on, had a blue light. Like it was blue light. Even at the number, it is like right there by my face. So I was like, unplug, it's fine. Like I don't have to, do it the time. And plus with our conversation, like I thought it was very fascinating that our body could naturally wake up with the sun. Like with the
Mm-hmm.
sunlight touching our skin.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, how is that even possible? Because again, me being a night owl naturally, I've never experienced something like that. At that point, it was just like little habits that I did in my room. But then those habits grew even more where now I don't have use the blackouts light because I want to actually have the sun hit my skin. Like that first sunlight
Mm-hmm.
hit my skin. And I also even changed the sleeping eye mask that I have where it's lighter and not super thick or heavy,
Mm-hmm.
just to ensure that with me tossing and turning, it'll come off throughout the night so that my eyes as well could get that sunlight and tell my body to like wake up. And even before going to sleep, I have a whole routine. I ensure like 2 hours before going to bed, I start winding myself off my cell phone. I kind of like avoid the TV so I don't find myself binge watching any shows. I make sure to go straight and take a shower and not a cold shower or super hot shower because I find that either extremes wake me up.
Mm.
It's just enough, like it's warm just enough for me not to like scream, bloody murder for how cold the water is,
Yeah.
but also cool enough that it kind of forces my body to like warm itself up and it makes me sleepy. And at that point, I'll go in and do like my face routine, but I have something playing in the background um, in my room. So it would either be a piano, like soft music playing, or the rain sound, or fires crackling, things that make me naturally sleepy when I hear them. Funny enough, sometimes I will, like when the TV makes that like
Yeah.
noise, like
The
that
white
white noise,
noise. Yeah.
I will have that playing in the background, only because I remember it as a kid hearing that.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, okay, let me play some type of like white noise in the background. So then my mind is like trained like, hey, so I'm about to go to bed. And then the last step that I would do is like literally lotion my whole entire body. I know some people's gonna be like, what? Lotion? Like how does that help you go to sleep? something about taking the lotion and slowly massaging it into your body, not just like slapping it on and saying, okay, lotion, but like taking the time to actually massage your whole entire body, with the lotion or body oil, whatever is your choice. It's almost like giving yourself a self massage to relax your muscles, like
Mm-hmm.
to relax your muscles. And then at which point, by the time I'm like, massaging the body oil or lotion in my body, I'm finding myself stretching, like taking out all the kinks from my shoulders and my back. And then, like giving myself like that good cat stretch where you just stretch your
Yeah.
hands and your legs and you hear certain bones crack and you're like, perfect. You're in bed by then. And I'm like under the covers with the mask on my forehead. And I'm like, okay, cool.
It's time
Let
for
me just sit
bed.
here and just listen to the noise. And before I know it, I'm like, gone. I'm asleep.
So,
Like,
do you fall
yeah.
asleep pretty easily then?
Um,
After you do your
I
routine?
do. So in the past, I will always say I fall asleep easily, which I did because my body was extremely exhausted,
Okay, yeah.
like extremely exhausted, right? So with this new routine that I've created for myself, I do fall asleep easy only because I have trained myself in this routine, so my body is used to that pattern,
Mm-hmm.
But if I do go astray, meaning like, let's say if one night I um, came home, and they're like, "Oh, let's watch a quick show," and it disrupts that pattern, my brain
Mm.
starts racing. So I would have to be purposeful in ensuring that either I stay in my routine a little bit longer, just to calm myself down because now I'm excited. My body's like, yay, are we staying up? And I'm like, no, we're not. We are going to sleep.
Yeah,
We're going to sleep. So I try to limit any like high induced
disruptions.
activities just to ensure I could
Mm.
sleep throughout
Yeah,
the night.
that's awesome. I mean, we've had conversations, full disclosure for any listeners. Estelle and I have talked about this before. And you're a great student and just steward of learning how to improve your body and understand your circadian rhythms and really use them for what they're trying to tell your body to do, which is wonderful. I love how much you're in tune with that. So it's great to hear like what you're saying. It's perfect, and I applaud you for that, really. And I want to ask you, what is the biggest contrast that you've seen, hopefully seen, between when you used to stay up late and you saw those different things going on with your health versus now? Like, what is the biggest contrast that you've noticed?
My sugar cravings has reduced so much, like so much, and I'm so happy about that. Because that was one of the things that concerned me the most. For the way I was craving this something sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and especially since I drink a lot of water. Like I drink a lot of water. And at first I thought it was like, oh, this is just hunger pains or dehydration. No, my body was genuinely craving the sugar because of all the energy that it felt like I needed just
Mm.
to sustain that whole night owl habit
Right.
that I've had. And to see that reduce greatly, that made me so happy because especially with my family, we have a history for diabetes.
Mm.
So I was like, that's an area that I did not want to visit. No, like I don't know her. We don't know her. So I was really happy at the fact that that was one thing that I noticed that reduced a lot. The second thing, biggest thing that I noticed as well is my lack of need for an afternoon nap. Like in the
Mm.
past, Estelle and nap was synonymous to each other. Like it was one of the same. It's like if you said
Yeah.
nap, you were calling my name. If you said Estelle, she's in a nap. Like
Yeah.
and to realize that I could actually go throughout the day and not require a nap, that just blew my mind because I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, I have grown. I am
Yeah.
mature now.
Yeah.
Although I would tell people naps are still great,
Hmm.
and given the chance, and they're like, "Hey, would you like to take a nap?" Trust, I will take it because I love sleep. But knowing that I do not need it,
Right.
like I do not need it, I thought that was such a great improvement because that was so dependent on taking a nap, during the day because of my bad habits at nighttime.
All right. That's wonderful. I'm very happy for you. And I guess my last question, and just thank you for sharing these experiences, and I'm sure it's going to help someone who's listening. And I want to ask you one last question, which is if someone right now is struggling with going to bed on time or forming good habits because it just seems inconvenient, or maybe they don't think it's as important, like what is the thing that you would say to that person?
Well, the first thing that I would say to them is, why are you scared to go to sleep? I know that's such a weird question to ask, but normally, and I'm just speaking, from experience, personal experience, and also just observing others around me, there are different reasons as to why, someone doesn't want to go to sleep. My reason was I felt like I needed to use every hour possible, because I had things to do. In hindsight, those things could have waited to the morning, honestly, like normal work hours to be completed. I also do know like others feel as if they think too much, and their mind race, and they feel like that's when all of their problems rear their heads, and they're just overthinking. So they may feel as if avoiding sleep, may solve the problem or be the problem, or it could be work. Like you work overnight. So that would be the question I would ask them, like, why are you afraid, to go to sleep? And once they have identified the reason, an honest reason, not a reason that they think, would be good to tell someone, but they're honest with themselves. For the longest time, I've always thought that, no, everything has to be done, at nighttime, and I could also do double the hours, night and day, so it'll be more effective. But there are consequences. Like there are legit consequences with lack of sleep, lack of time to allow your body to heal itself, which in turn manifested for me with craving sugar, acne all over my face, being cranky. And because of the conversation and the fact that, someone has brought it to my attention, gave me the opportunity to sit back, reflect, be honest with myself, pay attention to my schedule, and figure out how can I improve my time management instead of waiting until nighttime to do said task. Why couldn't it have been completed in the morning? And then just rewiring my thought process, for sleep, and then working my way to that. So I would think that is the most, and for myself, I think that would be the most important thing that I would ask. Because once you're honest with yourself and your situation, then everything else you will be able to receive any suggestions, tips, or knowledge that they may research or receive from Clock Tips, or from you. So, yeah, that's what I would
Yeah.
say.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Estelle. And thanks for sharing your wise experiences and advice. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure others can learn a lot from what you said today.
Thank you so much for having me.
There are many reasons that people find it hard to fall asleep and stay asleep. But even if it's difficult for you, from our guest today and many other people who have tried some of these tips, it's very possible. And one step at a time, whether it's getting an eye mask or not napping too much in the daytime, or just, changing the temperature in your room, there are steps that you can take to get there. So I hope that if you struggle with falling asleep and staying asleep, you'll be able to improve that one day. Please see a medical provider if necessary for further assessment. Thanks for joining us today. Please visit our website at clocktips.com for more information about this podcast, how to join our ongoing research study, and more resources to help you improve your time intuition, sleep, and productivity. If you found this information helpful or interesting, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with others and join the discussion on our social media platforms under the handle @myclocktips. Until next time, take care of yourself.